Yoko Ono is 87 years old now. Her voice is quieter, but her memories are sharp. She's lived through decades of controversy, loss, love, and legacy. She was there for the rise and fall of one of the greatest music partnerships in history. And after years of silence, she's finally decided to reveal something fans have been wondering about for decades: what John Lennon really thought of Paul McCartney in the final years of his life. For many fans, this is the moment they've waited for. Because behind all the headlines, the assumptions, and the myths, there has always been one unanswered question. After everything, did John still love Paul? The answer, according to Yoko Ono, is yes. And not only did he still love him, he never stopped thinking about him. But before we get to that revelation, we need to go back to where it all started. Not to the moment the Beatles broke up, not even to the height of their fame, but earlier, before the world even knew their names. John Lennon met Paul McCartney in 1957. John was 16, Paul just 15. They were kids, living in post-war Liverpool, connected by their love of music. It wasn't planned, it wasn't polished. It was raw, pure, and full of energy. John was wild, sarcastic, unpredictable. Paul was steady, thoughtful, and quietly ambitious. Together, they balanced each other perfectly. Their friendship turned into something bigger, a songwriting partnership that would change music forever. Together, they wrote the soundtrack to the 1960s. Song after song, album after album, they pushed each other, challenged each other, and created magic. People often say Lennon and McCartney completed each other musically. But emotionally, too, they were bonded like brothers. But as the Beatles became the biggest band on Earth, things changed. The pressures of fame, money, creative control, and personal growth began to drive cracks into their relationship. And in the late 60s, a new person entered John's life, Yoko Ono. Her presence changed everything. To John, Yoko was not just a partner. She was a muse, a mirror, a source of emotional and artistic liberation. But to Paul, and to the rest of the band, Yoko felt like an intruder. She was in the studio during recordings, at meetings, always by John's side. Whether fair or not, fans and even some Beatles insiders began blaming her for pulling John away from the band. Yoko became the symbol of division. And soon the Beatles split. It was ugly. Lawsuits, public jabs, hidden pain. The bond between John and Paul, once so strong, seemed broken beyond repair. And for years, the public assumed they stayed bitter, cold, and distant from each other. But now, decades later, Yoko has revealed something that changes everything. Because while the world saw a feud, John felt something else entirely. Yoko said in a recent conversation, John didn't stop loving Paul. He just didn't always know how to show it. She said that even in the most private moments of their life together, John would bring up Paul. Sometimes with frustration, sometimes with a laugh, but always with admiration. He followed Paul's solo career closely. He'd play Paul's records and say things like, "That's good, that's very Paul." He's still brilliant. He admired Paul's musical discipline. He envied his ability to craft melodies so effortlessly. And more than anything, he missed the connection they used to have, the one that no one else in the world really understood. Yoko said that late at night, when things were quiet, John would sometimes pick up his guitar and start strumming old Beatles songs he'd written with Paul. He didn't do it for nostalgia. He did it because those songs were a part of him. And so was Paul. She remembers one evening in particular, not long before John died, when he turned to her and said, "You know, Paul was always the one who could pull it all together. I miss that. I miss him." That was one of the few times he said it so openly. But Yoko says his actions said it more often than words ever could. She also revealed that John kept journals and notes in the final years of his life. Some were lyrics, some were private thoughts. One note simply said, "I hope Paul knows I loved him, even when I acted like I didn't." Those are the kinds of words that stop you in your tracks. Because they don't sound like a rock star talking about another legend. They sound like a friend who ran out of time. Yoko said that John deeply regretted not reaching out to Paul more often. They had some phone calls in the late 70s. They joked about getting together again. Sometimes they talked about their kids. And though they never officially reunited in music, there was warmth returning. John had told Yoko that if it ever felt right, he would call Paul and suggest they write one more song together, just for the two of them. Not for a record label, not for a tour, not even for the fans. Just them. The way it began. But life had other plans. On December 8, 1980, everything changed. John Lennon was taken from the world in the most brutal way imaginable. Yoko lost her husband. Sean lost his father. And Paul lost his oldest musical partner and one-time best friend. When asked about how Paul reacted to the news, Yoko said, "He didn't need to say anything. I saw it in his face." Paul later wrote Here Today as a conversation with John. In it, he imagined what they might have said if they'd had one more talk. It's not full of anger or blame. It's full of love, longing, and the pain of unfinished business. Now, thanks to Yoko's honesty, we know John felt the same. Yoko shared another powerful moment. She said that on the day after John died, she found him writing in a small notebook the night before. On one of the pages, there was a list of people he was thankful for. Paul's name was near the top. Beside it, John had scribbled one sentence, "Still my favorite collaborator." That, more than any interview or quote, tells us what we need to know. This was never just a story about rivalry. It was a story of two souls who changed each other forever, who built something no one else could understand, who hurt each other, forgave each other, and still loved each other in ways they couldn't always say out loud. Yoko has waited decades to share these things. She said she didn't want to speak for John before. But now, at 87, she wants fans to know the truth. Not the tabloid version. The real version. She said, John didn't like regrets. But he had one. They didn't get to tell Paul how much he truly meant to him one last time. She smiled and added, but maybe Paul knows. Maybe he's always known. That one sentence says it all. Paul has carried John with him for over 40 years now. Every time he plays Let It Be, or Yesterday, or Hey Jude, you can feel it. Every time he talks about the Beatles, you see it. That connection never died. In fact, when Paul speaks of John now, it's with a kind of peace. Like he's accepted that some things are bigger than words. That their bond, though complicated, was unbreakable. And now, with Yoko's words, the story feels complete. It's not a story of anger or bitterness. It's a story of two boys from Liverpool who dreamed big, who became legends, who fell apart but never really let go of each other. John Lennon secretly held a deep, lasting love for Paul McCartney. Not just respect, not just memories, but love. Real, personal, emotional love. And now we know that, thanks to Yoko. So, what can we take from this? Maybe it's that friendships, even broken ones, can still carry love. Maybe it's that pride shouldn't keep us from speaking the truth to the people who matter. Maybe it's that the stories we think are finished sometimes have one more chapter. At 87, Yoko Ono has given us that final chapter. And it might be the most beautiful one yet.